The paradox is the only thing that brings truth to light. Niels Bohr. Sometimes a question isn't meant to be answered, it exists to shake the ground beneath your certainty, to pull at the edges of what you think reality is. These aren't riddles or tricks of language, they're the raw collisions between logic and the universe. And somehow they survived every attempt to resolve them. This video is not just a list of curiosities. It's a journey into the deepest tensions in science, the places where our best ideas stop working. You'll encounter time loops that close without ever opening, civilizations that should be everywhere yet remain unseen, and moments when observing something actually changes what it is. You'll meet cats that are both alive and dead, billiard balls that collide with themselves, and black holes that may be erasing history. Each concept begins with something simple, but the moment you follow it to its logical end, something breaks. And that's where it gets interesting. If you're someone who finds beauty in not having all the answers, who doesn't mind staring into the unknown a little too long, then you're in the right place. Subscribe to Late Science, like the video if you learn something that unsettles you, and leave a comment with the one idea you just can't stop thinking about, because the universe isn't neat, it's layered, unstable, occasionally impossible. And maybe, just maybe, that's the point. Space looks calm, but it hides a question as anything but peaceful. We live in a galaxy with hundreds of billions of stars, most of them older than our sun. We now know that many of those stars have planets, and a surprising number of those planets might have conditions similar to Earth, warm enough for water, stable enough for life, old enough for something intelligent to have emerged. So whereas everyone, we've been listening carefully, patiently. Giant radio telescopes have scanned the sky for decades, hoping to catch a whisper, a signal, anything artificial. But what we found is silence, deep, constant silence, as if we're shouting across a canyon and hearing nothing back, not because no one's there, but because maybe something else is going on. Statistically, we shouldn't be alone. The numbers suggest that intelligent life should have appeared many times in many places. Even with cautious assumptions, there should be hundreds, maybe thousands of civilizations in our galaxy alone, and yet not a single verified signal, not a single undeniable trace, just stars, just distance. This contradiction has a name, but it doesn't need one to be felt. It's the kind of question that settles in late at night when you're staring out a window and realizing how much sky is really out there. It challenges the belief that life leads naturally to technology, that intelligence leads to communication, that progress is guaranteed. Maybe civilizations rise and fall too quickly to be noticed. Maybe they destroy themselves before they ever get the chance to reach beyond their home. Or maybe they're out there right now, watching quietly, choosing not to be seen. There's another possibility, one that sits heavier than the rest. Maybe we really are the first. That idea changes everything. It makes humanity something fragile, something rare. Means we're not just searching for others, we're carrying something that might not exist anywhere else, a chance to speak when no one has spoken, a responsibility not to vanish before we're heard. If that thought makes the stars feel colder or the silence feel heavier, you're not alone. Subscribe to Late Science. There are more questions waiting, and none of them come with answers, because when the sky remains quiet for this long, stops feeling empty, it starts to feel deliberate. Not long ago, Earth was the only known planet with the right ingredients for life, a fragile blue dot orbiting a modest star, unique and alone. But that illusion shattered thanks to modern telescopes and sky surveys. We now know our galaxy is overflowing with planets, hundreds of billions of them. And among them, Earth-like worlds are not rare. They're common. Data from the Kepler mission confirmed it. Across the Milky Way, there may be over 300 million rocky planets orbiting sun-like stars in the so-called habitable zone. Not one or two, hundreds of millions. Worlds with oceans, worlds with sunlight, worlds with time. Even if a tiny fraction of those ever gave rise to biology, and an even smaller number to consciousness, we should be seeing signs, flickers of communication, traces of machinery, artifacts that say someone else passed through here, but the sky remains quiet. This isn't a poetic silence. It's a sharp contradiction, the kind of math that breaks your sense of scale. Because space isn't just big, it's old. Some of these stars are billions of years older than our sun. That's more than enough time for life to evolve, build civilizations, and reach across the stars. If it ever happened, even once, in even one place, why do we see nothing? It starts to feel like walking into a vast cathedral and realizing you're the only one breathing. The air should be full of voices, echoes, footsteps. Instead, it's empty. And the more you learn about how full the universe should be, the more unnatural that emptiness feels. There are theories, of course, Maybe intelligent life doesn't last long. Maybe it hides, maybe it's spread out so thin that we'll never find each other. But every explanation comes with its own problem. Every answer leads to another question. Why does it seem like we arrived late to a party that never happened? If thinking about hundreds of millions of Earths with no reply makes your own existence feel more fragile or more precious, like the video and subscribe to Late Science, because we're just beginning to count the things we can't explain. And if there are millions of worlds out there with life, why is ours the only one that feels watched? Some problems don't come from a lack of information, but from too much logic. The kind that leads you straight into a wall. That's what happened in 1961 when an astronomer tried to turn a mystery into a formula. The equation wasn't meant to solve anything, just to lay out the variables. How many stars form each year? How many have planets? How many of those planets can support life? Of those, how many actually develop it? How many forms of life evolve intelligence? How many intelligent beings build technology that can be detected across the stars? And how long do those civilizations survive? Multiply it all together, and you get an estimate, a number, something that tells you how many alien civilizations should be broadcasting through our galaxy right now. And here's the part that never quite fits. No matter how conservative the inputs, the answer usually isn't zero. The Drake equation suggests we should be surrounded, that radio waves should be washing over us, whispers in every direction, signals coded in pulses, patterns, artificial echoes. But again, silence. So we go back to the formula, try to make sense of it. Maybe we were too generous. Maybe life doesn't evolve easily. Maybe intelligent life is rare. Maybe technological life is rare. Or maybe the last variable, the lifespan of a civilization, is where everything collapses. How long do we last? There are two ways to explain the silence. One is terrifying. The other is worse. The first imagines the galaxy not as a void, but as a place full of watchers, civilizations, vast and intelligent, scattered across the stars, but each one hiding, listening, waiting, and terrified to be found, not because they're paranoid, but because they've learned something we haven't. This idea paints the universe as a dark forest. Every species is a hunter, every planet a hiding place. The moment you reveal yourself, a message, a light, a signature, you become a target. Because in a place where you don't know who or what is out there, the safest strategy is silence. And when something makes a sound, it disappears. That would explain why we haven't heard anything. Maybe the others are out there, but they're not speaking. They're watching us, wondering if we're smart enough to stay quiet or foolish enough to shout into the dark. It's a grim theory, but it matches the facts. No signals, no contact, just an endless field of stars, all seemingly mute. Then there's the other possibility, that there's nothing out there at all, not because it's hiding, not because it's dangerous, but because we're alone. This is the empty ocean, vast, silent, not because it's being quiet, but because there's simply no one else in the water. We may be the first to sail this far, or the only ones who ever learned to build a boat. Both ideas explain the silence. Both are deeply unsettling, because if the galaxy is full of eyes, we're being watched. And if it's empty, we're the lone witness, the last boat, the species that if it fails, leave nothing behind. So we go on listening, and we wonder what kind of galaxy we live in, a forest full of threats, or a sea too big for voices to carry. If either image sent a chill through your spine, subscribe to Late Science. This is only the first layer. We haven't even asked the hardest questions yet. And maybe the scariest thing isn't that the others are silent. It's that they were never there to begin with. We used to think we were the center of everything. Then we learned the Earth orbited the sun, that the sun was just one of billions of stars, that our galaxy was one of trillions, and still somehow we assumed we couldn't be alone. But the silence is starting to change, that it's not just that we haven't found intelligent life. It's that we keep discovering more reasons why we should have more habitable planets, more time, more tools, more chances, and yet the universe stays quiet. It's not whispering, it's not murmuring, it's absolutely overwhelmingly mute. There's a strange emotion that comes with that, not fear exactly, and not wonder either. It's a kind of cosmic loneliness, a sense that the vastness out there is real, and no one else is watching it with us. But maybe silence doesn't mean emptiness. Maybe it means fragility. If life is rare, we might be holding something irreplaceable. If intelligence doesn't last, we may be a flicker in the dark one that could go out just as easily as it appeared. And if we are the first, then we're more than observers. We're the experiment, the first voice in the void. And that means we don't just get to ask, we're the others, or we have to ask what kind of story We want to leave behind what kind of legacy we're building or failing to build for the next travelers who might someday find what we've left. Maybe that's what makes this silence so heavy it reflects everything back at us. We don't hear aliens, because maybe we're supposed to hear ourselves a warning, a chance, a responsibility if the idea that we're the only conscious eyes looking out into the cosmos makes you feel a little smaller or a little more awake. Hit subscribe to Late Science. This is where awe and fear live side by side, because in a galaxy full of noise, silence is the one sound you don't expect. And sometimes silence is the loudest answer of all time, feels like the most stable thing. We know it ticks forward, never back seconds, past days, and a cause leads to an effect. And yet, there's a strange fracture hiding under this rhythm. A possibility that time may not just move, it may circle. That's where the next problem begins. Imagine a loop, not a metaphor, not poetry, a literal loop in time. You take something from the future, bring it to the past, and that thing ends up becoming the very reason it exists. There's no beginning, no creation, just an endless cycle with no origin, point, a story that keeps telling itself. This is the foundation of one of the most unnerving contradictions in physics, the kind that doesn't just challenge what's possible, but what existence even means. Picture this: you walk into a bookstore and buy a copy of Hamlet. Later you build a time machine. Just for fun, you go back in time, all the way to Shakespeare's London, and hand him the book. He reads it, likes it, puts his name on it. And centuries later, that exact copy ends up in the same bookstore, the one you walked into. Who wrote it? It didn't come from nowhere, but it didn't come from anywhere either. This kind of loop has a name, but names don't make it easier to digest. It's a cycle where the cause is the effect, and the effect is the cause, a piece of information or an object that exists in time, but not because it was created, just because the loop never breaks. And while this sounds like a writer's thought experiment, it's something general relativity doesn't rule out. In fact, Einstein's equations allow for closed time-like curves passed through space-seam that circle back on themselves under certain conditions. You could travel to your own past and bring something with you. It's not just strange, it's destabilizing, because if time can do that, if loops like this are real, then nothing is truly original, not ideas, not inventions, not even you. If the rules of time can circle around like this, then reality is less like a straight road and more like a spiral staircase you keep climbing. But every so often you pass the same point again. And this time, you're the one holding the book. If this made time feel less like a clock and more like a trap, subscribe to Late Science, because the deeper we go, the more time starts to fold in on itself. And maybe what we think of as the beginning is just the middle of the loop. You hand the book to Shakespeare, he reads it, memorizes it, and publishes it as his own Hamlet, becomes a masterpiece passed through generations, taught in schools, printed, performed, worth centuries. Later you walk into a bookstore and pick up the same copy. You take it back in time. The loop closes. No one wrote it. This is the heart of the problem. Not just an object with no origin, but information that sustains itself through time without ever being created. There was no flash of inspiration, no author with a quill, no mind behind the words. The story simply exists because it always has, because it never didn't. And this breaks something fundamental. We build our world on the assumption that everything has a source. Thoughts come from minds, machines come from inventors, music comes from composers. But in this loop, the source vanishes, and yet the thing remains. It makes you wonder what else could exist this way. A scientific formula, a technological blueprint, a piece of knowledge that appears in one mind and is passed into the past only to return in the future unchanged. A perfect circle, like a song with no composer, playing endlessly on repeat. Physics doesn't dismiss this. Einstein's theory of relativity doesn't forbid time loops. In fact, certain solutions, especially involving extreme gravity or hypothetical constructs like wormholes, allow for scenarios where the past and future intersect, and that opens the door to self-created objects, self-initiated events, cause and effect, dissolving into one continuous ribbon. It also opens something darker.